I am cold.
Still with us, Brett?
Great.
Yeah. Oh, I feel dead. Anybody ever tell you look dead?
I'm about to draw a ridiculous connection between two unrelated pieces of media, but here we go. I went to see Alien in the theater for its anniversary, and while I've seen it a million times, there were details, frames, techniques, shot compositions I never would have noticed in a smaller format. And okay, it obviously predates this by like 3 decades, but I was weirdly reminded totally of The Nick, that obscenely overlooked Clive Owen show from 2014 that ran for 2 seasons on a network no one ever heard of, a show directed and shot by Steven Soderbergh, a show that from a cinematography perspective remains one of the greatest, most raw things I've ever watched. The very first shot of the show is just a 25-second POV of Clive Owen's shoes. Everything in it is handheld and organic, so many dirty shots, voyeuristic shots, with the camera always hiding behind out-of-focus objects in the foreground. Or, I mean, just look at this scene. Literally half the frame here is taken up by a guy we can't even see. Plus you have a ton of great long shots with multiple compositions, multi-character staging. Or these shots I love that start off on something that seems totally superfluous to the scene until suddenly it isn't. Or others where what's out of focus and remains out of focus tells us just as much of a story as what's in focus. No 2 shots in the show are alike, and believe me, I'm barely scratching the surface here, so I don't know, like, if you're interested in seeing a deeper dive into this, drop me a line down below, because I'll probably do it. But anyway, it all just goes to show that there really aren't rules to this stuff. If you're willing to not just copy everything you see around you, to not just grab your masters, your mediums, your reverses, A, B, C, and D, and everything you're told you need, then shooting a movie becomes about one thing: capturing what you want to capture, no more, no less. And that is precisely what makes the original Alien from 1979 such a gorgeous, gorgeous, dirty, gorgeous movie.
You remember anything about the planet?
What's the last thing you do remember?
It's hard to believe it now, but this was Ridley Scott's second movie he ever did. After a career of videos and commercials, he wasn't a horror guy, he was never a science fiction guy before this, and he didn't set out to make a VFX film either. He set out to make a drama about 7 very real characters, and everything the camera in Alien does is in service to them, their reality, their experience. The driving philosophy on Alien was to keep everything feeling organic and real. Not science realism per se. I mean, why are papers fluttering on a spacecraft? Why is it raining in a landing gear bay? As Scott has said, I mean, if it looks cool, it looks cool. But it had to remain realistic in the sense that this isn't fantasy, and maybe more to the point, it isn't the super clean, hyper-elegant look that we got in most science fiction up until that point. Scott, his production designer Michael Seymour, Roger Christian, the art director, Carlo Rambaldi, everybody tried distancing themselves as much as possible from those films aesthetically so that everything here would be grungier, more blue-collar, never quite so clinical, never luxurious or at ease, and, of course, never static. Like on The Nick, Scott's camera is always moving. If it isn't in the action, fixated on a character or dynamic, then it's hiding voyeuristically from behind something, peering through. If a seemingly innocuous, inconsequential object or piece of a set is in the foreground or taking up center frame, that's because it's probably going to become important later on in that shot. Or maybe a character who's in focus has no lines while a character off-screen is speaking.
All the other channels are dead.
And a character out of focus only comes into focus at the end to respond.
Kick on the floods.
Even before characters are introduced, Alien is a film as much about reaction as it is about action. The camera tells us what's important, and what's important isn't always the loudest voice in the room.
You too, Lambert.
And what's in frame isn't always concerned with being captured in perfect clarity as long as the truth of the moment is being conveyed. Here's my favorite example of this stuff. This is a 2-minute and 18-second long shot of the camera moving from Kanan a wide over to Ash at the table and then pans slightly left to introduce Ripley sneaking up behind him, just barely dirtying the edge of frame. A moment that sort of foreshadows these characters' later confrontation in the Mother mainframe. Now, normally in a scene like this, two people arguing, we would cut back and forth between characters throughout. But not here. Ripley even crosses to the other side of the frame while the camera remains fixed on Ash. She's speaking, always just visible enough to know she's there, but we're studying him, laying the groundwork for his duplicity later on, and only when it's time for Ripley to assert her authority do we finally cut to her.
And you let him in.
This kind of framing actually happens all the time in Alien in these types of scenes. We might cut back and forth as characters speak, we might not, but there's always something or a part of someone in frame that tells us exactly where characters are in relation to each other and their environment. More often than not, characters in Alien are staged in groups, not singles. If at least two people share a frame, it's never boring, even if it's just a piece of them, and a subtle frame shift can bring attention from one character to another that was just at the very edge before, without having to move from master to single to reaction A, B, C, and D. The reason this stuff is so seamless, the reason all of Alien can achieve these moments that feel totally unbroken, even when there are cuts, is because everything was captured by Ridley Scott and his cinematographer Derek Van Lint together using two cameras simultaneously. Shots and their crosses, with Scott, like Soderbergh, shooting the majority of the film himself on main, handheld, always in the action, and Van Lint on second. When two characters are in a scene connected by a common object, they really are together, existing in the same space at the same time, and it's not just a trick of the edit. When every character needs to react to something insane, something that production can only pull off one time and that needs to happen in a single take, multiple cameras let you shoot action and reaction for and to the same event, capturing the raw truth of a moment like no amount of multiple take cutting could. There's a sequence in the Rolling Stones documentary Gimme Shelter where the band is listening to an early recording of Wild Horses for the first time. We never see the object of their attention, the speakers, the booth, nothing that they can see. The camera instead is this totally sentient thing, staring at whatever it wants, however it wants, a fly on the wall in every sense. It's almost grotesquely visceral as we zoom in on every nook and crevice of the band's faces, or again onto a pair of shoes, with no filter at all. And that's what Alien feels like to me, like documentary, not just in that the camera is handheld, but in that it's there to capture the truth of events in a way that feels spontaneous, concurrent, and unpressured by any obligation to what's conventionally understood to be right or good.
Okay, get dressed, huh? Parker?
Come on, can I finish my coffee? Thank you. It's the only thing good on this ship.
I'm Danny Boyd. Thank you so much for watching. Hey everybody, today's video was brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from all across the world. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, Mubi's always got something new and amazing to discover. And that's because with Mubi, every film you see is hand-selected by a team of curators, real people, giving you access to the best of cinema at your fingertips, streaming anytime, anywhere. And if you want to check out another great monster movie from another legendary filmmaker, I encourage you to go check out The Host on Mubi, a film by Bong Joon-ho about a family that has to rescue their daughter from a creature that's terrorizing their city. Critically acclaimed, you can watch it or anything else streaming on Mubi for free with an extended 30-day trial if you go to mubi.com/CinemaStix. Again, that's mubi.com/CinemaStix. For a whole month of great cinema for free.